The more you play MMOs, the more important keybinds become. They're an essential part in being able to move and see what is going on in the game while using our abilities, allowing you to react quickly and effectively. So today we're going to go over setting up those keybinds, and we're going to start with the movement keys. The movement keys by default are W, A, S, and D in most MMOs. So what this does, W moves us forward, S will move us backwards, D and A will turn our character. There is a trick, however, to making this more efficient because, as you can see, these turns are incredibly slow, and in a game where we may need to turn our character or avoid abilities and things like that, doing this is much less effective than what we can do when we strafe. So there's two ways of strafing. You can either press Q and E, and that will strafe you left and right, or you can hold down the right button on your mouse, which allows you to turn your camera freely and more quickly. And then also, when you press those sideways moving keys, those turning keys, it instead makes you strafe. So now I'm pressing A and D, and it's making me strafe instead. And I can still use Q and E to strafe. It's more just a matter of preference of what you like pressing. So by default, the best way to move is by holding down the right mouse button whenever you're going to move, and then using W to move forward, S to move backwards, D and A to move side to side. And then if you need to turn your character at all, you just use the mouse. So if I need to turn around, I'm holding W. Now I hold A and I just turn. Or I can just literally turn my mouse and it turns my character for me. So now we can move much more freely. We can change our direction much easier. And this also cuts down on the amount of keybinds we need because now we're cutting down 2 keybinds, which will free up what we can use later for all the abilities that we're going to have in this game. So as I mentioned, the default is W, A, S, and D, but what I like to use is Q, W, and E for my movement abilities, and then S is still a backpedal. So mainly I just have my 3 fingers on Q, W, and E at all times, and then it's just the same thing. When I want to move left, I just hold Q. When I want to move right, I hold E. When I want to move forward, I hold W. And when I want to turn around, I just use my mouse. And now all I have is 3 movement keys and then an occasional back step in case I need to do that to dodge a close ability. But you do move slower when holding back pedal, so it is something to be mindful of. So now setting up our actual key bindings, now that we've freed up those 2 additional spots already, these are going to be our like core keybinds: 1, 2, 3, 4, R, D, F, and A. Those buttons that are surrounding our movement keys, those are going to be the easiest keybinds to press. So we want our core abilities on these, and our core abilities are going to be things that we're finding ourselves pressing the most often. Next up, we have our secondary keybinds. These are going to be things where we still want to have easy access to these abilities, but we don't need to press them every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds or something like that. It's going to be things that are more, we press maybe cooldown reliant. These will usually be buttons that have cooldowns or utility buttons, things that we're not pressing all the time, but we still need to have quick and easy access to pressing them when we need them. And then next up, before we move on to any other keybinds, we can work with this for now. And what we're going to want to do next is apply modifiers. So modifiers are going to be things that allow us to press the modifier and then press the key binding again, and it will change it will make a new keybind for us. So 1 and Shift 1 are 2 different buttons. 1 and Control 1, that's now 3 different buttons all on the number 1 on our keyboard. I personally like just using Shift and Control. I'm not a big fan of Alt. I do have it for a few very niche keybinds, but I use them like once in a blue moon. So Shift and Control are my preferred. Really all you need to do is find one modifier that you really like and just work with that first. And then if you need to branch out further and you need more key bindings, you can then move to another modifier of your choice. So by default, most people will pick Shift because that's the easiest button to press out of the 3 modifiers. So all we're going to do is take these key bindings that we have so far in green and yellow, and we're going to go through them all, keybind them regularly, and then go through them again and keybind them with Shift. So it will be Shift a tilde, Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift 3, etc. Now we've done these modifiers and we still need a few more buttons for our class. So this is where we add additional options. So the orange keys are going to be keys that are very situational and sometimes even impossible to reach for some people. It really just depends on your keyboard, your hand size, like all these different things. But these are key bindings that I use additionally for like very, again, niche abilities or potions or things that I'm going to be pressing very rarely. So these are just even further stretching out of, I need just a few more keys. And you could even add something like B into this if you remove your bags, which, as you can see at the bottom, we have the keybinds Z, C, and V, which are normally keybound to things in the game. So I will show you how to unbind those. So we go into options. We're going to go to keybinds. And then we are going to find movement keys, and this is where we could rebind these movement keys if we wanted to, but again, you really don't need to when you're holding the right mouse button. And then we have action bar, which is where we're going to go first. And so this is where we start setting up those key bindings like I mentioned. So we're just starting out with the green and yellow again. And all we're going to do is we're just going to go through this list and just go, we'll just make it as simple as possible. So we'll just go a tilde, shift a tilde, 1, shift 1, 2, shift 2, 3, shift 3, 4, shift 4, 5, shift 5. Okay, and then that's it for this. These special action buttons, we're not going to want to bind those because that's not part of our keybinds. So then what we do is we minimize this. We're going to go to extra action bars. I guess before we keybind these extra action bars, I'll show you how to enable them. So here you can see by default, when you start the game, you should only have one action bar on your screen. You're just going to go to you're going to hit escape, go to options, interface under gameplay, and then, oh, sorry, it's actually action bars under gameplay. And then you're just going to enable these other action bars. So however many you feel you need. We can just start with, we'll just say we'll start with 4, which we'll put them like that. I guess 5, because that puts 2 of them over here. So now again, what we're going to do is go back to keybinds under gameplay. We're under extra action bars now, and now we just continue where we left off. So we left off at 5 or shift 5. So now we go R, shift R, T, shift T, G, shift G, and then it's going to be A, shift A, D, shift D, F, shift F, G. Oh, we already did G, so we move to the next row, which is going to be Z, shift Z, X, shift X, C, shift C, V, shift V. And now we have a few more buttons to add. So this is where we could add like some control modifiers. So we could go control 1, control 2, control 3, control 4. And then if we want, we can add even more. But again, we'll do that when we feel like we need to. There is also a little bit of like a cheat code button that I would definitely recommend. So we'll replace the control 4 with this one, which is shift spacebar or any modifier plus spacebar, because normally spacebar is to jump. But if you add a modifier to it, you can then use it as a key binding if I'm pressing shift spacebar right here. So then you still have the jump key bound, and then you also get a really easy button to press because your thumb is always right there. So it's a very nice, easy keybind that I would even include in like the green section. But because you have to use it with a modifier, I've just labeled it differently. And one thing I did mention is the back pedal. A lot of people talk about removing back pedal because it's unnecessary. And while it is true that it is slower and you won't really press it very often, I still find it useful occasionally. Just to avoid, like, say there's a giant circle in front of you right here and the edge of it is like just right on you. It literally is easier to just go like this than it would be to have to go like this. So just as a personal preference, I like keeping back pedal. If you really need the extra key binding, you can do that. And while we're on that topic, just like you can shift spacebar or modify spacebar, you can do the exact same thing with your movement keys, but I wouldn't do it with the W key. So you could do it with like shift Q. So you can make shift Q a keybind, you could make shift E a keybind, and you could make shift S a keybind. You just have to be aware that if you're holding shift, you can no longer move if you have those keybinds. Like right now I'm holding shift and I can still move freely because I don't have them keybind currently. But if you keybind them, it will stop you from moving while you're holding down shift. So that's the only thing you have to be mindful of. But again, if you need more keybindings, those are also available options that are very easy to press. But you would definitely want those for more like utility spells or niche things that you're not going to be pressing very often, because you don't want to have keybinds overlap with your movement keys. All right, so we set up our action bars in game, we set up our keybinds, and now it's about talking about where do these buttons go. So really all you need to think about is you need to just do this one group at a time. So we just start with our core abilities, which are going to be the things we're pressing most. And again, we should default these to the green keybinds first. And then if we still feel like we have more core abilities, which we really shouldn't, there should only be, classes usually only have like at most like 5 core abilities. Then we can move to the yellow keybinds. After we've keybound the core abilities, then we move on to reaction abilities. So reaction abilities are going to be things like Health Pot, Health Stone, any defensives that you might have on your class, things that instantly heal you, or things that instantly heal other players, like things that you're not pressing constantly. You're not pressing them every 5 to 10 seconds, but you still need to be able to press them very quickly when you do need to press them. That's what we're going to keybind next, because those are the next most important things to understand and know where those are keybound. After the reaction abilities, we're going to move to cooldowns. So these are going to be the longer, like 1, 2, maybe 30-second cooldowns, 1-minute cooldowns, 2-minute cooldowns, things like that. And these will usually go somewhere on like the yellow keys, and even moving into the orange keys if we really need to. And then after cooldowns, after we've categorized these abilities on our own or by using a video, go watch my pre-patch guides, the beginner's guides, then you're going to keybind everything else. So everything that you didn't break into core abilities, reaction abilities, and cooldowns, everything else is going to be keybound last, which will default to the remaining yellow keys, modifier keys, and the orange keys. All right, and that is pretty much it. The last thing I will mention is, as an additional resource, there's an add-on called Opie. So if you're still struggling to have extra keybinds, or you just want to free up some more space so you don't have so many, Opie is an add-on where you press a button on your keyboard or mouse, and it will open up a wheel, and then you can select an item or a ability from that wheel, and it will cast or use the item. I typically wouldn't recommend using an add-on like this for, again, things that you need to be pressing in like the middle of combat. I would rather use them for, like, what I use it for is potions, because there's so many potions in the game all the time and they're always switching, and I hate re-keybinding them and stuff. So I just use Opie, where I just press my middle mouse button on my wheel, I just click it in, and then it opens up the wheel and it just has all my potions on it. It has mana potions, it has specifically the potions that I don't need to instantly press when I need to panic. So like a health potion, I would not put it on there. I have mana potions. I have like the drinking mana potion where you like sit down for 10 seconds, speed potions, like things like that. And then you could additionally, if you're like a raid leader, you could put like the raid markers on Opie so that you just press one button and all your raid markers are right there, stuff like that. So Opie is a great resource at, again, cutting down on keybinds. And I think that pretty much covers everything for keybinds. So I hope this was helpful. And let me know what you guys think, or what other keybinds you might think that I missed or that you might use, or other setups like that. And that's pretty much it. So have a good one.